The relationship between Red Bull and AlphaTauri is a heated issue in Formula One, for one simple reason. Certain team bosses are anxious about the alliance. What if they're able to share information, or even worse, parts? It's not likely, but the team are afraid about it. And this time, Mercedes also chimed in with their thoughts on the new Enhances alliance. But Horner was quick to counter any attacks on their teams. And looking back at the first few rounds of the 2023 season, and AlphaTauri's position following a bad start, it makes sense to throw away any allegations. Not only was Nick de Vries failing to get up to speed in his first full season, but the AT04 was a sluggish car, prompting team principal Franz Tost to publicly state that he no longer trusts his engineering staff when targets were missed. Now, if Tost had launched such a barrage against a rival squad, it would have been okay, but against his own team, that was incredible. Soon after, the persons he blamed for the sluggish start were gone, and Tost decided to step down at the end of the season after 18 years in charge to make way for the new leadership team of Laurent Mekies as team principal and Peter Bayer as CEO. Bayer in particular has made no secret of the fact that under the new leadership, AlphaTauri, or whatever it will be named in 2024, will pursue a deeper partnership with the top Red Bull team and take more transferable components as long as the regulations allow it. This has rung alarm bells in the offices of several team managers, with McLaren's Zak Brown being particularly loud about the emerging situation and demanding for such collaboration to be banned. And recently Mercedes had their say about it as well. However, the harsh reality is that teams are only concerned about AlphaTauri because of the threat it presently poses to them, and the millions of dollars it may cost them in the Constructors' Championship. And right now, they're afraid of a team that, after a disastrous start to the season, with only 3 points and one driver fired during the summer break, had a 2023 goal that was simply to earn respectability. In the United States, the team developed a significant improvement that included a new floor, bodywork, and chassis adjustments, with Tsunoda finishing 8th and setting the first fastest lap of his career as a bonus. Daniel Ricciardo followed up with an impressive 7th in Mexico City, as the Faenza team gained important late-season momentum and began to close the gap on Williams, Alfa Romeo and Haas. The other teams separated in their own mini-battle at the bottom of the competition. Tsunoda led for the first time during the pit stop cycle after an upgrade in Abu Dhabi, as the team narrowly lost out on 7th place in the Constructors' Championship to Williams by 3 points. However, in the 5 Grand Prix and 2 sprint races from the United States to Abu Dhabi, AlphaTauri scored 20 points, Williams 4, and Alfa Romeo and Haas none. Momentum is essential in Formula One, especially heading into the winter, and the recent improvement in form has attracted the interest of rival team managers. At the F1 Commission Conference in Abu Dhabi, some team managers publicly expressed their displeasure and concerns over AlphaTauri's strengthened partnership with the Red Bull squad, who had recently made mincemeat of them in 2023. McLaren CEO Brown even wrote an open letter condemning the collaboration, which has existed since Dietrich Mateschitz acquired Minardi and rebranded it as Toro Rosso for the 2006 season. It was the first time a team ran something resembling a real junior operation, with Mercedes and Ferrari following suit in subsequent years with partner teams. The laws permit the sharing of transferable components, formerly known as non-listed parts, which include but are not limited to the suspension, rear crash structure, and gearboxes. Isn't this what Haas does for Ferrari? Take as many components as the requirements allow. As discovered last year, there are also very tight systems in place to guarantee that information is not exchanged between the two teams at Maranello. In a recent media call, Brown detailed why he believes the partnership should not be approved. "I think everything is pretty clear what the rules are," he said. "However, I think the rules need to be reviewed and modified quickly. I think the AB team ownership is now outdated for the reasons they were put in place many years ago. It was before we had a budget cap and had a huge disparity between our budget, Mercedes' budget, and the Force Indias of the world. It was intended to help the smaller teams. Now that we have a budget cap that I believe everybody is pretty much running at, it's a much more financially fair and equal playing field. Therefore, we need to maintain fairness for the fans and fairness for the sport. To have teams teaming up, I think, is against the spirit of what the definition of a constructor is. That is fair, and a valid point. And Brown was very careful not to mention Red Bull or AlphaTauri in his AB team example, but it is fairly obvious who he is referring to. And it isn't the Ferrari-Haas partnership, which received some similar criticism during Haas's best season to date in 2018, when it finished 5th in the standings. But why? Well, the basic reason is that AlphaTauri is regarded as a danger, but Haas is not. If AlphaTauri uses more parts from the class-leading Red Bull, logic says that the car will hit the points more frequently and for a greater payout. That is a problem that McLaren and Aston Martin could do without as they try to rein in Red Bull and establish themselves as top teams this season. They don't want or need the hassle of maybe gazing over their shoulders at AlphaTauri. As is customary in Formula 1, the teams connected with Red Bull AlphaTauri are acting solely in their own best interests, which is exactly how it should be. And as said before, Mercedes jumped into the fight as well, but Mercedes sees little benefit in creating a partnership with another Formula 1 team, despite the continuing debate about Red Bull and AlphaTauri's close links. There will also be a much stronger working relationship between the Red Bull and AlphaTauri companies in the United Kingdom. That improved relationship has sparked alarm. One of the concerns is that, in addition to the second team benefiting from its partner's know-how, there are potential rewards for a top squad by having the other undertake work. Despite Brown's call for F1 officials to focus a reaction to the problem, Mercedes technical director James Allison seems more calm about it. He believes that the laws prohibiting the transfer of any valuable technological knowledge between two teams are strong enough to ensure that there are no legal benefits to be achieved. Thus, it is not something that worries Mercedes. Asked for his views on the Red Bull AlphaTauri situation, Allison said, "I'm not entirely sure what the nature of the relationships between those two teams is, but I am clear on what the rules are. And it is that other than the very limited part of the car where you are permitted to supply parts, and therefore a certain amount of technical data alongside those parts, in every other respect the rules are very tight about not passing on anything that could be regarded as intellectual property from one team to another. The way that rule is written is very broad and very powerful, and it pretty much makes any communication not permitted." Allison believes that the only areas where teams may legally collaborate in an alliance are in marketing. If two teams have a strong relationship with each other, it can only really be a strong commercial relationship, he said. It cannot be a strong technical or a strong sporting relationship because the rules forbid that. In the past, it was more open. And the relationship that Mercedes enjoyed with the team that is now Aston Martin, at the time that was a relationship that permitted much greater freedom than it does today. In response to that relationship, the rules were tightened up substantially to mean that you cannot really have a technical or a sporting relationship. If it turns out that there is one, that is something that would cause unhappiness. So there is not much mileage to seek a close relationship with another team from a technical point of view because it is not allowed. And in response to opponents' worries, Christian Horner has now officially denied that Red Bull and AlphaTauri's collaboration should be reconsidered. Despite winning the Formula 1 championship in overwhelming manner last year, there was plenty of action at Red Bull. Last year was crucial for AlphaTauri on a variety of levels, from driver swaps to infrastructure modifications. However, it is the latter of these evolutions that has sparked the discussion in the paddock. Rather than develop its own ideology, AlphaTauri will adhere to the tried and true notion of Adrian Newey's technical team. The latter third of last season's campaign, culminating in a floor improvement in Abu Dhabi, demonstrated the potential of this alliance. However, Christian Horner contends that this arrangement is within the rules. AlphaTauri is owned by the same shareholders as Red Bull Racing, he said. But of course, the way they operate is independent from Red Bull Racing. They take benefit of the parts that are allowed to be transferred, like the gearbox and the suspension and so on, in the same way that Williams and Aston Martin have done so with Mercedes, or Haas with Ferrari. The Red Bull team principle is accurate in pointing out that teamwork is a well-established aspect of Formula 1. In this regard, his team and AlphaTauri are perfectly within the restrictions. Still, there will be doubts about whether an outfit that is almost certainly slower than the first squad is beneficial to the sport. This is especially important when both manufacturer and customer teams demonstrate greater ambition than ever before to compete at the top level of Formula 1. What are your thoughts on the situation? Can AlphaTauri or the new name team make waves this season with all the new parts? Or is it another story waiting to fail? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below.